somebody tried to say something went on this page, it didn't go on. So it's okay to back it up. So this is where I back it up. Aid, I'm doing fine. I'm blessed and thank you for asking. We are getting ready to read Enduring Word for Numbers the 26th, book of Numbers, Numbers the 26th, the second census. So it came to pass after the plague, the census of Numbers 26 came after the plague of judgment described in the previous chapter. That marked the conclusion of the passing of the generations that die in the wilderness, with the single exception of Moses, whose death is recorded in Deuteronomy 34. Numbers 26, 64, and 65 says, it makes it clear that the generations of unbelief had passed, that not one remained from that generation. The expression after the plague is to be regarded as a turning point from the first generation to the second, the shift from the fathers and the mothers to sons and daughters. God was about to begin a new work with a new people. The younger generation would begin to have their day. Take a census of all. Take a census of all the children of Israel. Some 38 years earlier, at the beginning of the book of Numbers, while Israel still camped at Mount Sinai, God commanded them to take a census, Numbers 1 and 3. This census was carried out by Moses and Eleazar in Numbers 26 and 63. By thus taking a census of his people, the Lord showed that he valued each one of them. They were registered by their families and by their names. Thus were they personally enrolled in the family book of the living God. And he thus in effect said to each one of them, I've called thee by name. Thou art mine. The first census was primarily for military organization. If they were to enter and take possession of the land of Canaan, they had to know how many troops they had and how they should best be organized. Numbers 26, 52, and 56 reveals an important second reason for this second census, to help in the fair apportioning of the land of Canaan, so that the larger tribes would receive more land. All who are able to go to war in Israel. The purpose of the second census was also made clear. They were to count those able to fight on behalf of Israel. This accounting, 38 years later, was also for military organization. 38 years before Israel was organized enough, they just did not have enough faith to take Canaan. Organization is good, and the work of God can suffer from a lack of it. But even the best organization can never replace a bold trust in God. Number those able to go to war meant something different now than it did 38 years previously. Once an easy entrance into the land of promise may have been expected, but their dream was long passed away. Now the Israelites made clearly to understand that the last effort will require the whole warlike energy they can summon, the best courage of everyone who can handle sword or spear. Hey, Queen. God bless you, Queen Candy. I see you, baby. I see you. Love you, sweetie. Thanks for joining. The wisdom which commanded the counting of Israel at the beginning of the wilderness journey also determined the count that at the end of it. So this would show that he did not value them less than in former years. It would afford proof that his word of judgment had been fulfilled to them. And moreover, it would marshal them for the grand enterprise of conquering the land of Canaan. So remember, they did the count back in the way. All the children from baby up to 20 years old. And then he counted from the 20 years old and up. Well, all of those babies the babies that were 20 when he said this, everybody above is now dead. So the count from below and the count to today should be the same, showing God's faithfulness to that group that was 20 then would now be 40 going into war. They got some sense now. They know how to trust God. Let's see what it says. For 20 years ago and above, by their father's house, all who are able to go to war in Israel. Spurgeon took this principle and applied it spiritually to our congregations, wondering how many there are among us who can truly battle in the spirit. If the numbers of our churches were taken in this fashion, would they not sadly shrink? We have many sick among us that need to be cared about and nursed and doctored. To revive the church roll so as to leave none but vigorous soldiers on the muster roll would make us break our hearts over our statistics. The children of Reuben were in the first census. Reuben counted, blah, blah, blah. The children of Dan. Okay, so Reuben counted 4,500 men ready for war. 38 years later, they counted 43,730, a loss of 6%. If this census is compared with that given in Numbers 1, the difference is that the first census only gave them the total number of men over 20 years of age in the tribe. The second census also gives that number, but also names the major families or clans that make up each tribe. Notable in the tribe of Reuben were Dathan and Abiram, who were co-leaders with the Korah revolt in the rebellion against the Lord. And Moses describes in Numbers 16. Perhaps one reason Dathan and Abiram resented Moses' leadership was because they were from the tribe of Israel's firstborn Reuben. Yet Moses was a descendant from Levi, a younger son was a leader of the nation. So Reuben was from the same tribe but a different family relation. Further, the verb translated rebel, contended against Moses and Aaron is rare, signifying a strong contest of wills. But unfortunately, they found they were struggling not just with man, but with God. And they became a sign. So God's judgment of Nathan, Abiram, and Korah and their followers in Numbers 16, because Dathan, Abiram, and Korah is the ones God opened up the ground and swallowed them up. So that was a sign both to the generations in the wilderness and beyond. So the term employs sign, the Hebrew nes, typically is used to donate an ensign or banner around which people rally. Jeremiah 50, what is this thing on for? Okay, because I'm reading. Okay, I got it. I'm like, what is it doing on? People rally. Jeremiah 52, or soldiers mustered to battle. Jeremiah 50 and 2. But like Sodom and Gomorrah, or Nadab and Abihu, Dathan and Abiram of Korah, these individuals would serve as historical bywords for how God deals with revolutionaries. Sons of Simeon. In the first census, the tribe of Simeon counted 59,300. 38 years later, they counted 22,000. This was staggering loss of 37,000 men for this once great tribe. It may be that the fall in Reuben and Simeon's population should be linked with these tribes' support for Dathan and Abiram and Zimri, but it's hard to identify any factor that would account for the decline of the other tribes. The sons of Gad. In the first census, the tribe Gad counted 46,500 men. 38 years later, 40,050 men. This was a loss of 11%. Sons of Judah. In the first census, the tribe of Judah counted 74,600 men ready for war. 38 years later, they counted 76,500. That was a gain of 3%. Because if you want to win, send Judah. If you want to win, send Judah. If you want to win, send Judah. For that is where your victory lies. So Judah's praise, send praise. And look like tribe of Judah, they upped it. They census. Okay, and the sons of Issachar. In the first census, the tribe of Issachar counted 54,000 men. 38 years later, they counted 64,000, a gain of 9,900, 18% gain. Well, all righty then. The sons of Zebulun. In the first census, the tribe of Zebulun counted 57,400 men ready for war. 38 years later, they counted 60,500. That was a gain of 5%, 3,100. 5% gain. The sons of Manasseh. These are Joseph's grandchildren. It is sure. Hold on. Manasseh. They are Joseph's children. They're Jacob's grandchildren. Manasseh was 32,200 ready for war. 38 years later, they counted 52,700. This was a remarkable gain of 20,000 more people, a 60% gain. Ephraim, Manasseh and Ephraim. These are the sons of Ephraim. So in the census of the tribe of Ephraim was 40,500. 38 years later, they counted 32,500. This was a loss of 20%. Sons of Benjamin. In the first census, the tribe of Benjamin counted 35,400 men ready for war. 38 years later, they counted 45,600. Gain of 10,200 men, 29% increase. Now, these are the sons of Dan in the first census. The tribe of Dan counted 62,700 men ready for war. 38 years later was 64,000. This was a gain of 1,700 men, 3%. The sons of Asher. The tribe of Asher counted 41,500 men ready for war. 38 years later was 53,400 men. This was a gain of 29%, 11,900. All right, so the mention of Serah, daughter of Asher, is remarkable, and she is mentioned as well in Genesis 46:17 and 1 Chronicles 7:30. So let's see what's going on. The sons of Naphtali in the first century, the tribe of Naphtali counted 53,400 men after the war, ready for war. 38 years later, they counted 45,000. This was a loss of 8,000, 15%. So these are those who were numbered in the first census of Israel. They counted 603,550 men ready for war. 38 years later, they counted 61,730 men, a loss of 1,820 men. So the total number of men ready for war during the wilderness stayed virtually the same over the past 38-year period when the generation of unbelief died in the wilderness. In one respect, we see stagnation. The stagnation of population is reflective of Israel's spiritual condition during those 38 years. We should have expected them to grow, as is normal in the course of generations. Instead, they simply stayed where they were. The 38 years in the wilderness were years of no growth, no advance, a mere existence until the generation of unbelief had died and a generation of faith replaced them, a generation that was bold enough to take the promised land. In another respect, we see God's grace and mercy, God's great mercy and blessing. The wilderness did not kill the people of God. Under God's blessing and guidance, even according to his judgments among them, they remained strong and vital through an entire generation in a difficult, inhospitable wilderness. An inconsequential net decline of only 1,800, 3%, in spite of physical obstacles, spiritual failures, and harsh judgment from the Lord, confirms that the promise to Abraham of innumerable descendants remains in effect. Notwithstanding the amazing increase in some and decrease in other tribes, the same sort of proportion is preserved in the east, west, north, and south divisions as before. So that just gives us statistics, a whole bunch of statistics. So to a large tribe you shall give a larger inheritance. So when Canaan was divided by lot, the lines were to be drawn according to the general principle. Larger tribes received a larger territory because they had more families to divide the land among. According to their lot, their inheritance shall be divided. The actual apportioning of land within a territory would be done according to their lot. With the idea that God guided the lot, Proverbs 16 and 33, the apportioned land would be an inheritance, remaining within the family and not be permanently sold or transferred. For they were not numbered among the other children of Israel. The Levites were not numbered in either the first or second census because the men of their tribe were not to go to war, so they didn't have to be counted. because there was no inheritance given to them among the children of Israel. A second reason to not count the Levites was because they were not to receive no inheritance of land as the other tribes. The inheritance was greater than property because the Lord himself owned them. But among these there was not a man of those who were numbered by Moses and Israel and Aaron. So none of those counted in the first census were counted in the second. That was the old generation, the generation of unbelief, who perished in the wilderness. They obviously had inheritance in the promised land, except Caleb and Joshua. The census takers, Moses and Eleazar, bridged the generations. Moses has led the people of Israel mightily and valiantly through Sinai and the wilderness experience, but he will not enter the promised land. Instead, Eleazar will assume the responsibility of priestly leadership for the new generation. Under the latter, Joshua, this new people of God, would enter their inheritance through the ministry of a greater Joshua. Jesus is Greek for Joshua. The people of God in every generation are invited to enter into God's rest. There was not left a man of them. It is good to take such words as reminders of our own mortality. Just as a generation passed in the wilderness, so we, if Jesus does not return for us first, will pass from this earth to eternity. It is good to soberly consider this and live as one prepared to die. God bless you, Pacheco, Patches, and Clock Aaron. I see you, blessings. So just as that generation passed, we should be ready, prepared to die. So on each of these unbelieving men, the divine sentence was executed. Unless Christ come first, our turn will come. In Adam, all die. We must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ. Each was born alone, then they must die alone. And alone give an account to the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Prepare my soul to meet you, O God, should be our mantra. So if we're not serving God, let us do so with intense earnestness, since only for a little while shall we have the opportunity to do so among men. Live while you live. At the same time, lay plans for influencing the rising generation. Lay yourself out to work while it is called today, because we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. So that concludes the enduring word read for Numbers, the 25th chapter. That concludes the read. I'll be back here at 6 within an hour on the Big O. I'll be back. But those of you who are here that I'm doing the recording of the commentary, I am Mama Pam of SMRF International Ministry. 7-minute read family, 7-minute read followers, just 7-minute read, faithful vote. And all I ask you to do is bless the ministry, me, with $7. 7, SEV number 7N, with $7. $ Mama Pam 23, $ Mama Pam 23. God bless you. $ Mama Pam 23.